The night was heavy with the kind of stillness that makes your skin prickle, the kind that whispers trouble is brewing. It was just past midnight on a muggy August evening in 2024 in a quiet cul-de-sac in Willow Creek, Virginia, when the chaos erupted. Flashing red and blue lights painted my backyard. A neighbor's dog howled like it sensed a storm. And there, in the glow of her porch light, stood Marla Thompson, decked out in zebra-striped pajamas, clutching her phone and yelling, "I've got a rogue chemist in my sights." She was pointing straight at me, standing barefoot on my dew-soaked lawn, holding a thermal spectrometer in one hand and a chipped mug that read, "World's okayest lab geek," in the other. I should have seen it coming. Marla had been spying from her window since I moved into this sleepy suburb 6 months ago, her silhouette flickering behind her curtains like a bad noir film. By 12:30 a.m., my street was a circus fire trucks, hazmat vans, and a police cruiser skidded to a stop, their sirens slicing through the night. I stood there, bathrobe flapping, as a SWAT officer trained his rifle on my sample cooler. While Marla, now high-fiving a baffled paramedic, crowed, I stopped a drug lab. She had no clue I was an FDA field investigator on a covert federal mission. And with one 911 call, she'd just blown my entire operation sky high. It had started so innocently. Earlier that evening, I'd been fine-tuning my portable gas chromatography unit in my backyard lab, a setup that, to the untrained eye, looked like something out of sci-fi flick mist curling from cooling coils, LED lights blinking on my equipment, and a faint whiff of ozone from the low-hum generator. I'd secured everything. Chain-link fencing, biometric locks, the works. But to Marla, it was a neon sign screaming Breaking Bad. She didn't ask questions. She never did. She just watched, judged, and acted like she was the neighborhood's self-appointed sheriff. My mission was critical, tracing a foodborne illness outbreak linked to 5 local schools, likely from contaminated produce or water. I was to confirm the source quietly, without sparking panic or alerting potential culprits. That plan shattered when Marla grabbed a megaphone. Yes, she owned one, and screamed, "He's cooking something illegal," to anyone who'd listen. The police swarmed in, ordering me to step back, hands up. I set the spectrometer down and complied. The younger officers hesitated, unsure, while Marla, now in slippers and a headlamp, pointed at me like I was a wanted felon, her phone still recording. "He was talking about pathogens," she shrieked. "That's drug code, right?" Her husband, Tom, stood behind her, munching a sandwich, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Tension spiked when an officer moved to open my quarantine cooler without gloves. "That's a bacterial culture under federal protocol," I said firmly. "Open it wrong, and you'll ruin the samples." He froze, then backed off. Marla, undeterred, yelled, "He's lying. I saw him pouring chemicals. I heard bubbling." She even whispered to a neighbor, "Bet he's making those face-eating bath salts." It was absurd, but the stakes were real. My data window was closing, and her stunt risked everything. After a tense call to the FDA's regional office, my credentials cleared, and the mood shifted. The SWAT guy holstered his gun, muttering, "Well, that's a new one." Apologies followed, but Marla wasn't done. "You're saying he can run a secret lab in his yard?" she demanded, arms crossed. "What about my dogs? What about our air?" The lead officer explained I was authorized, but she just scoffed. "I bet that badge is fake." As the emergency crews left, I surveyed my scattered equipment, recalibrating what Marla had knocked over in her frenzy. I was livid, but focused. 6 hours left to finish testing before the samples expired. The local news, tipped off by Marla, showed up too late for the drama, but caught her retelling her heroic takedown. The clip went viral with a caption, "Marla calls cops on FDA agent. Thinks she's a hero." By morning, I had an apology from the police and a typed safety concern letter from Marla, complete with a blurry photo of me holding a test tube, circled in red like a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. It wasn't an apology, it was a declaration of war. Marla didn't stop. She fired off an HOA email titled Urgent Health Hazard, demanding I halt my chemical experiments. Her so-called compliance committee herself, Tom, and a woman named Ellen who swore 5G caused her migraines was a kangaroo court. I responded with a polite refusal, attaching my federal authorization. Undeterred, she posted my email on the neighborhood bulletin board, scrawling "not HOA approved" in red. Then, my security camera caught her sneaking onto my property, gloved hand fumbling at my shed's latch, a plastic bag in the other. When a sensor chimed, "Unauthorized entry detected," she bolted, dropping the bag. I reported the breach to the FDA and sent her a cease and desist. She tore up, leaving the pieces on my porch under a rock labeled troublemaker. Meanwhile, my tests revealed something chilling: E. coli and coliform bacteria in the drainage behind our homes, matching the outbreak strain. The source? Likely runoff from improper waste disposal. Then it hit Marla's DIY compost pit. Perched on a slope was a mess of pet waste and expired food, leaching into the runoff. The irony was brutal. The woman who called me a hazard was likely poisoning the neighborhood. I adjusted my sampling to map the contamination, careful to stay legal. The results were damning bacterial spikes traced straight to her yard. Marla escalated, passing out flyers titled "Toxic Lab" in our midst and hosting an HOA safety walk past my house, pointing at my shed like it was a missile silo. Only 4 neighbors showed up, 2 for the lemonade. At an emergency HOA meeting, she projected a blurry video of me, claiming I was handling radioactive materials. I stood, introduced myself, and presented my data, graphs, maps, and bacterial counts pointing to her compost. The room turned. A nurse connected the dots to the school illnesses. Another neighbor, whose kid had been sick, glared at Marla. She floundered, accusing me of faking data, but the evidence was ironclad. Then a city inspector arrived, not for me, but for Marla, following a tip about her compost runoff. She tried to charm him, but he took samples, his frown deepening. That night, Ellen from the HOA called, apologizing for Marla's overreach and asking me to host a safety seminar. I agreed, and at the event, I ran a live test on drainage water near Marla's yard. The contaminant scale flashed red. The crowd gasped. Marla, spying from her hedges, didn't show. My final samples confirmed it. Marla's yard was ground zero. I set dye markers to trace the runoff, and after a drizzle, the sensors lit up, proving her compost was the source. But at 3 a.m., my camera caught her shoveling soil into trash bags, frantically hiding evidence. I sent the footage to the FDA and County Health Department. By noon, officials arrived, citing Marla for illegal waste disposal and runoff violations. She screamed about harassment, but the video of her tampering sealed her fate. Marla's last stand was a protest, waving a sign claiming she was targeted. Neighbors filmed her meltdown, and the clips went viral. The HOA ousted her in a landslide vote. She stormed out, threatening lawsuits, but her credibility was gone. My investigation wrapped, and I turned my shed into a community science corner, with kids flocking to see bacteria under microscopes. On my final day, a national news crew arrived, tipped off by Marla about FDA overreach. I showed them my data and her doctor video. The story aired as a tribute to my work, with a clip of Marla yelling at the crew, now a meme goldmine. As I packed my gear, a note appeared on my door: "You won't win." I'm still watching. It was Marla, defiant to the end. I filed it and drove off, the cul-de-sac fading in my rear view, kids waving, and Marla's blinds twitching one last time. What would you do if your neighbor turned your life into a conspiracy theory? Should Marla face jail time for tampering with a federal investigation, or was she just a misguided busybody? Drop your thoughts below, smash that like button, and subscribe for more wild stories. 3,998 characters.